As I had mentioned earlier on this morning, this particular topic is really important to all of us that are in this group right now. And I know that we have at least one Maui Fire guy on the call. He's in. I saw him in the chat earlier on. Aloha, and I'm happy that he is in here. And hopefully, if he has anything to add, I would love to see his comments in the chat box. And even if he wants to come off of mute, we could do that so he could participate if he was actively involved as well. So it's really great that we have a representation of dispatch, fire online, and then police involved right here. I was interacting with fire a little bit, but not as much. They have their in-house psychologist that takes care of things with them. So I was mostly focused on the police response and what we were taking care of. Um, so, this is why we have this panel here today that's presenting, but we love Maui Fire as well, and anybody that wants to chime in on that piece, feel free. All right, I'm going to show a presentation here real fast, and this is going to set the stage for what happened um, through a video. Really wanted to show you guys uh, just a bit of a background as to what really occurred before and during the fire response. Before I start this video, as I'm getting this queued up, would everybody go through and just introduce yourselves real fast? I'll start with, let's go with Davlynn and Melia first, and then I'll hit Keoki, Matt, and Heather.
Hi, aloha, I'm Melia Johnson, and I am a supervisor for the communications section at the Maui Police Department.
Thank you. How many years you been doing that, Melia?
Working on my 17th.
Right on. Thank you.
I'm Davlynn Ricardo. I am the Emergency Services Dispatch Coordinator for the Maui Police Department 911 section.
And how long you been doing that, Davlynn?
37 years.
Right on. Thank you. Just a short time, yeah?
Yeah.
Keoki.
Hello, everybody. My name is Keoki Santos with the Maui Police Department. I am, at the time of the fire, I was a sergeant in the Vice Division with K9 and got assigned as acting lieutenant over the incident out there. My current assignment is lieutenant of the Vice Division, and I've been with MPD for 18 years now.
Right on. Thank you.
I'm Matthew Brown. I'm a detective in Lahaina. At the time, I was the acting lieutenant of CID, or the detectives in Lahaina. I'm currently still a detective.
Thank you. Thanks, Matt.
Hi, Heather Gilroy. I'm a sergeant in Lahaina Patrol and was working the day of the fire. Still a sergeant in Lahaina. And this May I made 21 years.
Congratulations. That's awesome. All right, we are going to show, and Stephen Lansdale is on here too. That's great because he was over at the morgue doing stuff, and so he could chime in as well from his perspective as to what was happening on the other side of town as they were trying to help identify and find the remains and bodies to identify who these folks were. So let me start off with a video here. As I had said, I'd like to show you this, and I want to make sure I share this correctly.
This was the seaside town of Lahaina, and this is what it looked like after it was reduced to ash. In August 2023, this historical town in Hawaii was overrun by a wildfire that would soon be known as the deadliest in 100 years of modern U.S. history. The first warnings came days before the fires erupted. So how and why did so many perish?
It's windy, and then there's a flash, and I think that's when a tree's falling on a power line. The power goes out, our generator kicks in, the camera comes back online, and then the forest is on fire.
This is the first wildfire reported to the public by Maui officials. Shortly after midnight on August 8th, local authorities say a brush fire is reported in the area of the Bird Conservation Center. Residents are evacuated. That same evening, miles away in Lahaina, Marshall says their sensors also start picking up stress signals in that community. The National Weather Service has been warning for days that the combination of high winds and dry conditions could cause damage and increase the threat of fires. 6:37 a.m. Authorities say the first brush fire in Lahaina is reported.
There's a fire. Is there anybody else in here? No, I'm here by myself. Come on, come on. You have slippers?
I got you. We won't let you fall. We won't let you fall. We won't let you fall, I promise.
There's gas tank there too, you know.
Yeah, well, we gotta, that's why we're trying to get out of here. Propane tank. Come on, come on. Hello? Gotta evacuate, guys. There's a fire.
We were getting calls about high winds and little fires starting here and there.
One fire reported in a residential neighborhood above Lahaina, believed to be caused by a downed power line.
See them right there, that's the power line that started.
The fire that occurred first thing in the morning was contained. We had resources on it for over 5 hours.
At this time, Hawaiian Electric says several power lines are still down across West Maui. Thousands are without power.
Firefighters left the scene shortly after 2 p.m. They say to battle fires elsewhere on the island.
We had multiple catastrophic, dynamic, rapidly evolving fires that were ripping this island apart.
But by 3 p.m., a fire was once again burning in the same area above Lahaina, and as dangerously high winds whipped through West Maui, flames raged down the mountainside.
And then all of a sudden we start getting call after call after call for Lahaina.
We're gonna die.
Where are you folks at?
In the harbor, next to the water. Please come now.
Please go into the water. That is the safest place right now, sir.
You have a hose? Here. Oh, there's a propane tank. Hey, there's a propane tank. Huh? Maui Police Department! Fire starting up again. This house is gonna catch on fire pretty soon. They have propane tanks, so I would get out now.
Okay.
Yep, grab everybody. I don't know what's inside, bro. Shit.
Catch on fire, 430.
Oh shit. Stuff's popping, bro.
3:41 p.m. Resident Joe Schilling sends this text message to a friend. They're trapped and breathing is becoming more difficult. 4:06 p.m. Schilling tells his friend cars are exploding on the road. His family tells ABC News these messages were the last anyone has heard from him. 4:20 p.m. Jill Perkins and her husband are now in their car. They watch as flames engulf their home. 4:45 p.m. They're stuck on Hawaii Route 30 with dozens of others trying to head out. They would eventually make it out safely. By 5:33 p.m., others like Noah Tomkinson, who say they've been waiting hours in traffic, escape the flames by jumping into the ocean. 5:36 p.m., Vasco Bay is trying to leave the local coffee shop where he works on Front Street. He's only about a block away from Noah's vantage point. Around 5:45 p.m., the Coast Guard says it begins receiving reports of people in the water needing rescue. They later say they rescued 17 survivors, including 2 children, from the water. 5:52 p.m. Vasco takes this last video of buildings ablaze before getting in his car. He manages to drive inland rather than onto Front Street.
I pulled into the parking lot, and then once I got out, it was just embers blowing in my eyes, and I couldn't even breathe. You know, once we opened the door. Come out. We saw about 14, 15 people that were just trapped inside there.
The officers packed their Ford Explorer in a nearby fire truck with the people they rescued.
Get in, Uncle.
The heat inside of the car was just intense.
The destination was the Civic Center, set up for evacuees.
That kind of hit me hard. You know, I'm from Lahaina and my friends live out there, and some of my family.
I start my body cam and I actually said something like, at least we'll get our last moments on video.
They get my body cam, so at least they have our last memories.
Looking at the conditions, I was like, you know, if I get out of this car, I'm probably not going to get back in the car. And if I do get back in the car, I probably won't be able to drive out.
We gotta move, just move fast, Yank the left right here.
We were driving through a street where we couldn't see past the hood of our car, but then on both sides of us, there's completely engulfed building.
This is the Maui Police Department. We need you guys to evacuate. You guys need to evacuate rapidly.
Central 4 Bravo 50. Go ahead. I've been advised by multiple drivers that multiple power lines are down north of the station on highway. I was told they're blocking.
Is it just you guys in this house? Huh? Is it just you guys in this house? This entire house?
I'm not sure if they're there. Hello?
Let me just double check.
Huh?
Let me just double check.
Okay. Don't go open the door.
Hello, police department!
Okay.
If there's anybody in here, evacuate! Hey, gotta go, brother. The fire is right behind us.
Pretty much everybody's on another unit.
Sorry, I can't hear.
I'm trying to find the other people and then we're going to drive.
Let's go. How much people is there? Oh, the guy and the mom.
Yeah.
Yeah, the guy's grabbing the mom right now.
Hello. Yeah, we're evacuating the houses. The fire is coming down this way.
601. 601, you on this channel?
Head out.
The Keoki Community Center Red Cross is set up.
Hi, we let everybody know that we're going to evacuate everybody on the street.
Okay, we're deciding to evacuate?
Yeah. This is not fucking important! We're trying to fucking get everybody out of the country! We gotta come back here 4 fucking times!
No, so then if you can get around this house is starting to fire, this pole's about to go down and the next one by Chart House is going to go down.
Okay.
After that, we're trapped on this side.
Okay.
So we have 5 minutes to get out of here.
Okay, all right. Hey, Matt, come with me. Sorry, dude.
You're actually on tap 1 right now, trying to...
You can fit in there. Yeah, I'm gonna take you. Maybe I'll just take you straight to the hospital. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. You're welcome.
After the fire, there were accusations that official response from the Kiai, those meant to protect, actually trapped some people further. The report saying police activity surrounding intersections was necessary to help evacuees navigate roads covered in downed power lines. The report citing intense winds, which it says impeded officers' ability to always hear radio traffic.
They problem solved.
Does anybody got a boat colors?
They did tremendous heroic things. They saved lives. Make no mistake about it.
Usually when we train and we plan, we're getting ready for a bad guy or some type of threat of that nature. Never Mother Nature. And it felt like an apocalyptic type movie. The winds kept changing, everything kept changing. So your plan might have been good 5 minutes ago.
Hurry up! Go!
But with the change of the winds and the fire and stuff, now it's not an option.
That's how quickly things could change.
Yes, sir.
They're trying to say that we trap people and we wanted their houses to burn so that people can come and buy that.
Officers Tiano Ricard and Raul Mera are some of the Maui police officers who lost their homes that day.
Didn't seem real at first. And the longer it went, it's like, okay, it's gone. We're not coming back tomorrow.
When you hear the criticisms, as somebody who also lost a house?
I mean, people are upset. So they need someone to blame. But after they're done grieving or in the process, they're going to realize, hey, these are our people from the community. They lost their homes too.
I don't think it's really hit a lot of us, you know, even the community. I don't think it's really hit yet because everyone out there everyone's helping. Just know that, like, we were there, we tried as much as we could with what we had. You know, we're there all night. It's just hard sometimes, you know, like we got out and like a lot of people didn't, you know. Like friends' parents, and it's been difficult at times. You know, most times, just all of us, we internalize it, but I know it's affecting, you know, not only us first responders. I know it's affecting everyone in the community,
We went right back into right where we came from. And right when we went directly back on the road we had just come out of, and it was completely impassable at that point. So if we were 2 minutes off, we would have died 100%.
The officers told us there are invisible scars from that day that they continue to battle.
Well, we're saving people we don't even know. I couldn't even make it to my own family. I couldn't get them out.
That still weigh on you?
Yeah.
4 members of Pupunu's family did not make it out. 4 of the 100 victims who died in Lahaina that day.
Our finest days are not behind us. They're very much in front of us.
Thank you guys for allowing us to share that with you. That video is just a glimpse, just a little glimpse into the nightmare that occurred that night, going into the day, into the night. And I know that people from all across the world here today, and they may never have been to Maui, maybe they've never been to Hawaii, maybe they've never been to that side of the world, but trust me, I lived in the Caribbean, I lived all across the States, Canada, and in Hawaii, and I'll tell you, we're not different. If you could imagine, and this is speaking to the Caribbean people who are on the call now, Hawaii is just like the Caribbean. Like when I lived there for 6 years and continue to work there still, the same trees, we have the same people, the same type, everything is all the same. It's the same, it's just a different island. We're all just different islanders. But I'll tell you something, losing 5 square miles due to a fire may not sound like a lot, but when it is so concentrated of an environment with population, and you have generations of families that have lived there and have sowed the land and belong to that soil, and you're going to hear from the panelists today to their connection to the community of Lahaina, but not only Lahaina, and I don't want Lahaina to overshadow everything. We had fires that were simultaneously happening on 3 parts of the island. There was a fire that broke out in Upcountry, which is on a mountainside. So in Kula is the name of the town of the city. And then you had fires coming down to Kihei, which is under Kula, coming down the mountainside. And then you had simultaneous fires in Lahaina. So all of this stuff and this response is really driven. Now, there was a hurricane that was passing, and you guys correct me if I say anything out of place or wrong, but it was a hurricane that was passing about 500 miles to the south of Hawaii that was causing some very heavy winds. So winds were gusting up to 80 miles an hour. And so when these fires had ignited, it was spreading so fast and really virtually impossible to get all of the types of fire responses that you usually would up in the air or by sea or by land. So in Hawaii, which is different to the Caribbean, because I haven't seen this in the Caribbean, but I know we have Caribbean firefighters on here as well. We utilize choppers to take buckets of water, dip it into the ocean, take the buckets up, and to dump them on a fire. And you could imagine in this strength of winds, it was virtually impossible to get those choppers up in the air to dip those buckets to get the amount of water that you needed to extinguish fires. And so there was also some logistical issues, and I'll have our firefighter on here comment on this stuff as well, and I'd really love to see his perspective on it. But what was happening as well simultaneously is that electricity was out and going out, and so pumps were not able to be accessed to be able to get pressure into hoses, and there were multiple breaks in the lines where you couldn't even get ample water and water pressure to fight the fires. So I couldn't imagine the devastation from the fire people's perspective who were trying to extinguish fire, where you don't have the resources that you need and you don't have the ability to be able to extinguish these multiple fires happening everywhere. It was really like being in an inferno. And all they could do is try to assist as best as they can to try to get people out and get people out and get people out. And as you saw in the video, many of these firefighters and police officers and other emergency responders, including our dispatchers who were stuck on the other side of town doing dispatch work, they are from this community. Their families are from this community. And so they are hearing their loved ones and family homes and stuff going up while they are continuing to work and to take care of other people. So I hope this paints the picture of what we're going to discuss here today, because this is the chaos that was ensuing. So I will take a break here now, and I'll turn this over to Melia, because the first calls that were coming in actually went into our dispatch center. So Melia, if you don't mind going off of mute and taking it from here, please.
Good morning. Wow, to have to reflect back to August 8th. It's still kind of heavy for us to talk about because it was so real. I got a call at 4 a.m. From one of our dispatch supervisors to come into work. She said the phones have been going off since midnight. And, you know, normally on the night shift, we will have 4 people. She said, we haven't had a break. It's just kind of crazy. I said, okay, I'll come in as soon as I can. So I arrived to work around 5 a.m. At that point, till about 6 o'clock, we have already received about 500 calls on a night shift from midnight to about 6 a.m. You know, on a usual night, maybe 60. So, you know, things were just odd. It wasn't a good feel. And the calls kept coming. As soon as I sat at my desk, I just started answering calls, and everyone was answering calls. And it just kind of progressively got worse. I mean, Kula was on fire, and then another fire started in Olinda. And then, you know, it was Lahaina started breaking out. And this is all early in the morning. So it's very unusual. I remember thinking to myself, okay, who's coming in? Who's my shift coming in? And strategically, I wanted to place my dispatchers on radios that I thought was going to be the busiest. And I did. You know, I put my most senior dispatcher on the fire channel, knowing that she could handle that. If anything was going to happen, she was our best dispatcher to work in the fire channel. And I did so with Wailuku. I was going to put my next best dispatcher on Wailuku because of Kula. We had no idea that Lahaina was going to turn out that way. And then our newest dispatcher went to Kihei Lahaina. The radio I anticipated to be the slowest, just because Kula was such a big fire at that point. As the day progressed, you know, we had other emergencies. And again, it just felt like, what is going on? You know, we had 4 suicides that day. 1 by gunshot, 1 by hanging. It was like, what is going on? We have fires, yet our first responders were being sent to everything. I ran out of firemen to send to medical cases. It was just the most bizarre day. And it, you know, again, it started from midnight. And, you know, we had no idea how bad it would get. We knew it was off. We all were just manning it as best as we could. But nobody could leave the room. And we just couldn't get a grasp of it. It was just so much. We tried our best, but you know, it was crazy. And it's still hard to fathom that by the end of the 24-hour period, we took 4,500 plus calls. You know, that's just insane for the amount of people that we have. And again, like I said, dispatch normally has 4 people in there working. We were able to get our second crew come back in a little bit earlier to help us, because at this point, you know, we haven't even had the big fire in Lahaina. We've had all those other fires that we've were able to contain, but you know, around 3:30, 4 o'clock is when we had the next group come in. So at that point, we had about 8 people, 8 people in the room, and again, nonstop. We divided up radios as best as we could. We tried to answer as many calls as we get, but we were also facing difficulty with receiving calls. It was just overwhelming. We had so many calls in our queue that some were going over to Molokai. And so, our Molokai one dispatcher was there trying to do her best. And we don't have visual, we're just hearing everything. We're hearing it from our units out on the road and of course the people that we're trying to help. And it was just, we got to a point where it was so out of control, that we changed from, and we say this in dispatch, help is on the way. That day, at the heat of the moment, we were not able to reassure people that help was on the way. And that kind of just, it sits bad with me because I've been doing this job for many years and, we normally can help save. I know that help is coming. I know that who I assigned to that situation, and I know, I can calculate in about 10 minutes, somebody's going to be there. That day, we were just literally telling people, save yourself. Get out, run, do whatever you have to do to save yourself, because I cannot tell you when help is there. Our units were so overwhelmed. There was no one to send. Everyone needed to, it's sad. We don't want to have to do that. But, for me, that's the burden. We had to say, just save yourself. Do whatever you can. I remember talking to an elderly female from the housing out in Lahaina and literally telling her, you can do this. Get outside. She goes, I don't have a car. I have nowhere to go. I said, just go outside and wave somebody down. So she goes, oh, somebody's coming. I'm going to wave them down. And she did. And then she tells me, wait, I need to go back in the house. I forgot my purse. I'm like, no, just go. She's like, no, I'm going to go get my purse. I'm like, oh my gosh, seconds going by, minutes going by. Then she comes back down. She goes, I found another ride. I'm going to go. I'm like, thank God. Just go, save yourself. She goes, but I don't know about my friends. I'm like, worry about yourself, just call. Yell for your friends to come now if they can. But please, just leave right now. This person's willing to take you. And that was it. I hope she made it. I pray she did, but that was the type of calls we were getting. People were just so lost and in despair. And I think, at the end, when that shift was done, we just kind of sat there in shock and cried and went home, slept a couple of hours and came back. I'm so proud of the men and women that I work with and for what they endured, during that most horrible time and what we continue to endure. Really, it takes special people to do the work that we do. Day after day. And, I'm proud of that our team continues to pull together and hang in there despite the long hours. We are working 12, 16 hours a day with minimal staffs. And we continue to do that. It's a calling. I believe that for our officers and our fire people and our medics and including dispatch. For us, it's a calling. We show up because we know that the work we do is important. And if we're not here, then somebody's not going to get help. So, crazy times. And, in all honesty, Dr. Dara, thank you for coming to, speak with us, but we're still coping with that. And yeah, we're strong and we're getting through it, but reflecting back and seeing that video, that brings back a lot of emotion.
Thanks, Melia. Thank you. Davlynn?
Well, I was in Nashville. I was in Nashville attending a 911 conference because I had taken along with me and most of our county 911 personnel, the command staff. we were looking at the new 911 system that they want to install in Hawaii. So we had gone up there to look at it and give our approval that this is something that we want for the state, not just for Maui County, but statewide, right? So when I was up there, I got notice, and I monitor my emails. I got notice that that there was a fire at home, and so I called in like I normally do, and you know, and you could tell everybody was short. You know, it's like short, not because I'm taking up their time that they can be helping to save somebody, you know. So, and I was just, is everything okay? What can I do? What can I do from this side? And it's like, there's nothing. I said, okay, then you guys just take care of what you have to do. I'll watch the emails. Anything unnecessary, I'll handle from my side. And I'll either take care of it or we'll put them on hold and let them know that we can do this at another time. Nothing is more important than what we're doing right now to save our communities and the island of Maui. So, you know, we did that, you know, for a while, going back and forth, attending classes and going back and everything. I tried to get home and they wouldn't put us on a flight. You had to wait until the next day. We were flying out the next day. So it's like, okay, so I'm constantly calling home and I'm constantly being a pain. But, you know, it's like, I just want to make sure my family is good, my family here at work, you know, and of course, I know they can't leave. So I'm calling my husband to make sure he feeds them, you know, bring food for them to take care of them. And I said, and he was quite overwhelmed when he came up because everybody was just, the level of anxiety in the room was overwhelming. And for my husband to see them like that, he was frightened. He was really frightened. He called me when I was in a class. He told me, I need to talk to you. And he told me, well, you know, just so you know, your people are having a really hard time right now. And I said, what do you mean? He said, no, he said, it's really bad in the room. And he said, the tension, the calls, you can hear you know, he hears the traffic. I said, okay, I'll call home. I call up to check. And of course, they gave me a very, very brief rundown of what's going down. And I'm like, I can't do this. I can't attend a conference. So what happened was I had one of our vendors from Rapid Deploy. Their people were leaving to go back to back to work. And he had them turn around from the airport and come back to me and set up a program, their computer system, and then they dropped it onto my phone so I could monitor the amount of calls that were coming in and see. But of course, I can't answer them, right? I can't do anything. All I can do is monitor. Anything that I thought was local that might not be for the fire, I could have answered, but it's like, you know, I don't know what it, because sometimes they call on the admin line to report a heart attack or an abuse. And that is something that needs to be handled immediately, right? So basically I could just look at all the calls and say, oh my God, please help my people, you know, please make sure they make the right decisions. You know, I'm looking at what's working, what's not working. I'm calling the telephone company to make sure that, you know, they service everything. We know what's going on. And I had Hawaii Tel with me up there. So they were up, they were telling me, okay, this is what's going down. We lost cell phone in some parts of Lahaina. So I said, so is it down totally or just in the burn area, you know, where it's burning? And he said, right now they're not sure. He said, we can't go in until the fire is done because they can't fix anything. And because of everything was still burning, you know. So I said, okay, well, just keep me updated and I'll just keep feeding my people so that they know that, you know, what's going on. Because we didn't know when the phones went down, you know, because they were just continuously just answering the phone. The phones were just ringing all the, and I mean, they didn't differentiate between a Kahalui call or, hey, we haven't gotten a call from Lahaina for a while. You know, they're not thinking that because they're so busy processing the call that they have and entering it in. So that point when they asked me when did the cell go down, is like, well, they had to go back and check when the towers burn or, you know, and basically it was all the fiber optic that burned, that, you know, that took all the data and everything away from them. But when I did get home, we couldn't fly straight into Maui from Colorado, our connecting flight. So we ended up flying out to Kona. And then myself and AC Tom caught a flight and came up to Maui. And then I went home, changed clothes, and came straight to work. And just stayed here and just, hug my people, support them, and see what can we do, what do we need to get done, and just so that they know that they had someone that they can talk to if they needed to. I stayed here with them, until I made sure I talked to everyone that came in that was there that day and the next shift coming in, just to make sure that, okay, we're here. I'm here. You need help, just tell me. If you're not feeling right with yourself, let me know so that I can make sure that I can reach out for somebody to help you and your family. Because of course we're looking at anybody's family. Did we lose anyone? Melia couldn't find her son for a couple of days. One of our girls, she lost an uncle out there in the fire. Susie Egdeman lost contact with her sister, and they later contacted about a couple of days later, right? So we were very fortunate. Our people were safe and secure here. There was a community out there that we did our best to help. And then also our officers, making sure that they're safe. The firemen, trying to coordinate the efforts between them and what the police are saying and what the fire are saying, and trying to connect it so that everybody is in the same place or understand what's going on. And then, of course, life doesn't stop because we have this fire that's going on. Like Melia said, we had all these suicides. We had people with chest pains. We had fire department personnel that was not assigned to the fire that went continuously to cases, going back and forth between Wailuku and Kihei, because we were getting fires in Kahului by Harbor Lights. And it was just continuous. And of course, we were lucky that we had other medical rigs that were available. So we had that support, but it's a feeling for them that, they were trying so hard to get all the help out there, and sometimes they were limited to what they could do to support them on the road. And that was hard for them to take, to feel the helplessness in there.
Thanks, Davlynn. Does this, I think I'm seeing the comments here coming in, it's heartbreaking. I mean, it just obviously is touching everybody. I'll break away from you guys just for a little bit, and I'll go across to the other room with Keoki guys, and then I'll come back because I have questions that I want to ask you all, because I know the types of calls that were coming into even afterwards with the awful types of calls, and we'll get into that afterwards. So let's start with Heather and Matt, and we'll go to Keoki after. So Heather, fire starts off behind her, and you and Matt, I want to hit because Keoki was stuck on the other side of town, even though he wanted to be there, and he'll talk about that piece just now. But Heather, you want to start?
Sure. So that morning, I was the second watch sergeant, so we started at about we go in around 5:30. Kind of start to do the lineup. But when I was driving there, I could tell, we had heard about this storm, and obviously didn't expect what it brought. But driving in, you knew that it was going to be a busy day. There was debris in the road. While you were driving, your car was kind of shaking on the highway, and all types of debris, plants, trees, everything was down on the road. So as soon as we got in, we usually have a lineup and brief, but we kind of skipped that, realizing that, all the midnight guys were still out on the road, kind of at different traffic posts, going to all these alarms. So I met up with the night watch sergeant, and we, decided that my guys, there's 5 officers typically on a shift in Lahaina, that my guys would, respond to all the calls for service, and his guys could more or less stay at the fixed posts because there was already poles down at major traffic intersections, Keawe and Honoapi'ilani. I think the poles were down between Puamana and Laune Poco. Just a significant, I mean, I've worked a lot of storms. I've never seen so many telephone poles down. And where the lines were down, it wasn't necessarily lines being down. It was that poles were snapped in half, or, you know, the lines were spider webbed across the road so that if you tried to drive through them, you would take down all those poles. You know, that was a significant problem too, that a lot of the main intersections were cut off. So that first fire up off Lahaina Luna came in around 6 a.m. We went up there. The guys did a great job. They evacuated that whole cul-de-sac. And it was, you know, moving to the brush and moving to the houses. Fire was able to get it under control. And they were still kind of mopping it up. And so we went down to start handling the other calls for service. There was, you know, like corrugated roofs flying off buildings and trees down on houses, and still, like Melia said, still the you know, other calls for service, whether it was medical calls for service or you know, disorderly, kind of the regular calls that you get on a regular shift. And we kind of did those until, you know, till the fire picked up again at around I think it was 2:55. And right off the bat, you could, you know, by this time other officers had come in. We had another sergeant and detectives and some extra personnel. And I stayed down. There was one sergeant that went up to that fire off Lahaina Luna where it had kind of, I guess, you know, reignited. And I was down at the intersection. I could just hear if you know, you work long enough with certain people, you can hear in their voices that something's going on. This is not right. And they were, you know, evacuating multiple people, saying multiple structures engulfed. And so I left the intersection I was at and started heading towards Lahaina Luna. And you could already see just a huge, massive fire storm funnel cloud. I mean, you know, there was times during the fire that the fire was going sideways because it was so windy. And, you know, keep in mind the whole time here, you know, there's also debris flying around. There's just people are getting hit with stuff. There's still people, pedestrians, people out walking around, you know, just really the most chaotic experience I've ever experienced in my life. And when that second fire, I mean, I've never seen anything like it in my life. It was just a mad dash for, you know, every transmission was either, you know, some staple or just historic building of Lahaina engulfed, or, you know, the officers throwing somebody in their car. And it was just, by the end of the night, I don't know how to explain it. You know, it was defeating, that's for sure. And yeah, I don't know where else. I think that's.
Thanks, Hannah. Yeah, we'll come back to it because I have questions and stuff around that too. I want to ask afterwards. Matt?
All right, so that morning I was at a homicide class in Wailuku. I knew the fires up country were going, and after class I'd planned, because I live up country, to go assist with that. And so before going, I heard a rumor there was a fire in Lahaina. So I called the acting lieutenant out there with my classmate. And like Heather said, when you talk to people, you can hear in their voice when something's not normal. And I said, hey, I hear there's a fire in Lahaina. Is that true? I've been in class. He's like, you need to get here now. We have multiple structures on fire. And then his phone went out. And so I'm like, okay. The other detective from Lahaina was in this class. So I told him, hey, listen, stop what we're doing. We're going to go to Lahaina now. So I contact my daughter. I'm supposed to pick her up and say, hey, I called her. You have to go to your mom's. There's a fire in Lahaina. I'll be back in a couple hours. I figured it was a structure or two. I didn't think it was the whole town. that was going to turn into the whole town. And so I'm going code to Lahaina, and I get a call from my daughter, and she says, "Dad, it's not okay. It's not one house." And I said, "Okay, I'll be fine. Don't worry about it. I'll call you when everything's under control." And then going around Ma'alaya, the phone went dead. So that was the last my daughter heard, and she could just see online that it was out of control in Lahaina. So I get to Lahaina, and I don't think I called off right away. I was gonna go to the station and see, hey, where can I help? But all the transmissions on the radio, the first avenue I could, as soon as I got into Lahaina, I just started driving through. There were cars exploding, pieces flying through the air. On my drive to Lahaina, there were times where I was speeding 70, 75 miles an hour on the straightaways, and there was still debris floating in front of my car. It was going faster than I could drive. And so when you come around the corner, you could just see the fire, the smoke going across out to the ocean. So I just started going house to house, and one of my coworkers, his house the top half was engulfed in flames. And he stopped me and said, everything's gone. I said, not yet. So I kicked open the door, and the flames came down the stairwell and pushed us down. Said, we got about 10 seconds, and things were falling. So we just started ripping stuff off. He was newly married and just had a child. So I understand the importance of grabbing some pictures that aren't going to be replaceable. So we went through and just held our breath, grabbed 5, 10 things off the wall, and ran out, and then the thing started falling down. Oh, that was pretty lucky. And so then you go to the next, and then we just started hopscotching with the other officers, one neighborhood, then the next. It was scary, but I guess at the time, you don't think about that. You're focused on getting more people, pulling all people out of the houses that they couldn't walk. Like Heather said, the debris. One of the old men, I was helping into my car, which already had 4 or 5 people in, and I got hit in the back. And they go, who is going to fight a cop right now? And it was actually a big piece of corrugated metal. And it didn't really buff me, but it hit me in the back, and I turned around, and luckily it didn't hit the old man, but if it was any higher, who knows what it would have done to me. So we got them in, we dropped people off, just constantly running people, running into the fire, to houses, driving down streets where you couldn't see, the flames came over. The letters on my Impala, a couple of them melted off. My windshield wipers melted to my windshield. Again, when I was responding, I wasn't thinking, oh, this is terrible. I mean, in my mind, I knew it was. In looking back, there were places I probably shouldn't have went. Driving through debris and fire to get out of certain areas. We're not supposed to use a word that it was out of control, but it was. If it was in control, we would have lost 104 people. So the night goes on, we meet up, we have these different sections of Lahaina to like groups of, each sergeant had a group of officers, and we were just continuing to clear it. As the fire spread, we just kept moving with the fire. And then a call came in that the Civic Center was now at risk, and the police station was at risk of burning down. And they couldn't evacuate everybody fast enough because there's only one road in due to power lines being down. So I rushed back, helped clear out the Civic Center, redirect them out country. Just kind of look at the station like, okay, I guess the station goes down. There's nothing we can do about that. Then went out country to the new area where people were being stored, and just hundreds of people, cars everywhere, and they couldn't get to the airport the way they knew how. And I said, there's a back road that finally got opened. And then fast forward to the morning, I'm responding back. I know there's people that didn't make it. There were times at the night where people were crying for help. You couldn't see it. It was covered. There's flames and smoke. Patrol recovered a couple, but there was 1 or 2 that you could hear that you just stopped, right? You get out of your car, you run, you can't breathe, so you're wearing this tiny little mask. You have 30 seconds to get back to your car. You can't see, you can't hear, and then the screams or the cries for help stop. And that's hard to live with because you can't save everybody. No matter how fast you can drive or how many doors you kick in, obviously we didn't save everybody. So I knew there were going to be bodies. So that morning I came back, talked to the lieutenant, said, listen, I'm going to grab 2 officers and the van, and we're going to start putting people in. Medics didn't have enough body bags. So I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We started putting the bodies in the van, and then we got them to the Civic Center, and we just kept making trips back and forth. We'd have 4 or 5 in the van. We could, document the time, the date, what they were wearing, move them, and then just by that time the fire was gone or pretty much out as far as the big flames. So patrol now is starting to call off, hey, we've got a body here. Hey, we've got a body here. And it was just, we couldn't collect bodies fast enough. And so it was probably around noon, 1 o'clock where maybe it's a little clear, where now detectives from the other side came in. It's been about 36 hours I was awake at this point. So exhausted, but you're just going on adrenaline, right? And, it was difficult. I've worked in the Lahaina of my almost 20 years for probably 15 of them. And so there were people I recovered that I used to work with, people that I knew from the community. So it was difficult for that. And then it was good to finally have Wailuku and other districts come in and assist. And they said, okay, you need to go home for a couple hours sleep and then pick up there.
Thanks, Matt. Thank you. Keoki?
Yeah. So the day of the fire, like I mentioned before, my assignment was to the Vice Division as a K-9 sergeant. I was also a K-9 handler at the time. So the day of the fire, our unit did not get deployed to any of the incidents that were taking place. We basically just worked a normal day and then went home. While we were in the Vice Division, while we were at work though, we did have the radio on, so we kind of heard what was happening, and our normal protocol is to wait to be assigned to anything, especially in a specialized unit, because sometimes you have very specific roles that we would need to play in these type of incidents. So at the end of the day, I went home. I live in the Kihei area, the opposite side of the island from Lahaina, and there's actually a birthday party happening at my house that night. I kept the radio on though, and as specifically for Lahaina, that was a station that I was listening to. You could hear, like it was mentioned before, the intensity in the officers' voices as they're dealing with stuff, and I could get a very strong sense of what was happening over the radio, mostly by the tone of dispatch and the officers, and how much traffic there was on the radio. During that time, I was also in constant contact with my commander, just asking him, what's our assignment? What are we going to do? And basically we were told to stand down and just wait for our chiefs to make a call on us getting sent out. So like I said, there's a birthday party happening in my house. I ended up locking myself in the bedroom because I was emotionally overwhelmed by hearing the voices on the radio, and these 2 guys right here, specifically Heather and Matt. And yeah, so that kind of went on through the afternoon, all the calls coming through. Later that night, I actually got evacuated from my home here in Kihei because the fires were approaching my neighborhood. So I had to pack up my family and my K-9, and we had to go to the other side of the island and stay there for the night. The next morning, responded to the station as we normally would, again waiting for assignments. And then that's when I learned of my assignment as the acting lieutenant over the incident out in Lahaina. So loaded up, headed out to Lahaina, and when I reached the other side of the island, I got to a point where I could still see that the town is still basically on fire. There's a lot of smoke in the air. The helicopters were running, and it's just this insanely eerie feeling, seeing the town that you grew up, going to and knowing this beautiful historic beachside town just gone, up in smoke, and you don't know what you're going to deal with. And a lot of us didn't know what we were going to deal with. Going into that morning, we were expecting that we were going to find thousands of victims. We really had no idea how many people we had lost over the night. And then the first officer I came across was actually Sergeant Gilroy. And she was on the side of the road at a major intersection, down power lines everywhere. And what was so crazy and dynamic about this situation, like I said, it was still on fire, but there were still down power lines everywhere. We didn't know what was active. We had no idea, like, really the threats that were still right in front of us. But I remember seeing Heather with just ash on her face and on her any parts of her body that was exposed outside of her uniform, and how powerful and like how ingrained that image is in my mind. And again, these are, like, we've been in the department for nearly 20 years together. These are my friends, people that I love and respect, highly respect. So yeah, just to see them in those places. And again, so this is like this is overnight now that they've stayed more than 24 hours. They've been on duty. And then just the look in her face again, like just this, I don't know how to explain it. I've mentioned this a couple of times to people, and I just cannot explain the look on her face. Not like, there's not fear. It's definitely, you could see strength, but just the impact of what they had to deal with over the last 24 hours was just evident on her face. And the second person I actually ran into was Detective Brown, just by chance. And again, this is my brother. We've been on the SWAT team together. We've been through some insane things throughout our career. And he's a guy that has been on my side in some like, we've been involved in shootings together. We've been shot at together, actually, and this is the guy that I want right next to my side in any of those incidents. But again, the look on his face, the ash on his skin, like it was overwhelming seeing that, And Matt was actually with a victim that had perished in the fire. That was the first victim that I saw as being assigned out there. And I don't want to go into too much graphic detail about that, but it was barely recognizable as a human. Like most people would see that and walk right past this victim that we saw. And that was like a precursor of what we were going to deal with. At that point, we had recovered no victims. And obviously, in our thought process is that we're not, we want to know if there's anybody alive in the town. That's number one, to get into the town and see if there's any survivors that we can get medical assistance to, and start working on that. And then like Matt covered, also the victims, right? We needed to start recovering people. So just briefly talk about how that went. Matt covered it, and he actually knows a lot more than me, because I was stuck in the command post, kind of directing from that end while these guys were out on the streets. And like you said, Dara, it's like five mile stretch basically of our town that burnt down. So within the first couple of days, because the town was still on fire throughout that time, and there were so many hot spots everywhere, we did our best to canvass the town. And over the first few days is actually when most of the victims were recovered, and most of which were located on the roadways. It's basically people that were trying to evacuate and made it to the streets or made it to their vehicles, tried to flee on foot. So before really any of the big recovery guys, the FEMA USAR teams, the urban search and rescue, and all of those guys came in, it was basically MPD and MFD and our medics going around town and doing our best to recover victims and also locate anybody who might need medical assistance. And sadly, we didn't find anybody any survivors. Yeah, and I think that's probably a good start, Dara, from my side, and then you can kind of let us know where to go.
Yeah, thank you. I'll save my piece here for a little bit down the road, but I want to go back. Oh, Melia just got up. You know, the calls that were coming in across the country and across the world were inundating our 911 dispatchers, call takers as well. Davlynn, you could go off mute here for a second, but one of the things that makes Maui dispatch so special is that they actually are trained. Davlynn, you could explain this better, but you're trained in fire dispatch, in police dispatch, and for ambo response, right? And so you take care of, and so these dispatchers, Davlynn, you could go off mute. The dispatchers that we have are specialized, trained dispatchers, so you couldn't just pull a random person in to come, like an officer or somebody else to come help, because unless you're trained in the system that we have on Maui, it makes it very difficult. In fact, they even have outer island people that live on other islands that could maybe dispatched, but they couldn't cover for us because they don't know our system, right, Davlynn?
Well, you know, they do have like teams that they have a threat team, and those are people that specialize in communications that go to locations of disaster. But before they go into the room, they have to be trained.
Yeah.
And at that point, during those days, those hours, we had no chance to train anybody.
No.
So we were fortunate that we reached out to people. One of our girls just gave birth and she was at home. She heard about the fires. She left her baby with the mommy and she came in with her mom and she came in and helped us. We had people that left our department that are working at different county facilities. They offered, they reached out or we reached out to them and they came in and they helped us too. So we had a lot of support besides our own people right now that, that went and I expressed to Melia and to Susie, I said, okay, now remember, don't use all our team at once because we don't know how long this incident will be. So try and spread it out, and if we see people that's offering to help that we know that they can handle our system, then bring them in, but time them, circulate them so that they will have the most effective use of them during the time that we have. So that's how we handled it those days.
And you guys were getting calls almost from the beginning of people calling and saying that, NPD was causing people to die and that there were conspiracies taking place, that we were being hired by rich people to burn the land down so people could take it over. Melia, I remember you telling me that there was this lady from Connecticut that kept calling over and over and over. Could you talk a little bit about some of those nuisance calls and some of the hatred that you guys were trying to take care of as you were helping people that you were facing? Some of the junk stuff that you were hearing.
Yeah, it just kind of blew my mind that we actually were getting calls like that, like the very next day, as soon as it was reported on the news nationwide, that we would have people that would actually waste their time and take time out of their day to call our little center here to complain about the conspiracy theories that they really thought was happening. Mixed in with everything else that we're dealing with, 24 hours later. So I just was like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
And just keep calling and just keep calling, did you know that there were 1,000 children that are unaccounted for? Did you know that your police chief, rigged this? He left Nevada to come here and cause all of this destruction. We just couldn't believe it. And it got to a point where it was like, disconnect. Disconnect. I mean, it was, and not just me, every single person in our room was getting multiple calls like this. And it's like, wait, is this an emergency or not? Like, why are you calling? Next, we're here to help people. We have phone calls on 911 that people need help. We don't have time to be defending, the situation that occurred or defending my officers, my police chief, my firemen. This is just ridiculous. So yeah, we quickly were just like, disconnect. We don't have time for this.
Mm-hmm.
Those calls would come in like starting about 2 o'clock in the morning. When the East Coast was waking up, then they would start coming in, because when I was pulling recordings and I was listening to them, I was like I could not understand how people could feel or say things like that we would never think about. You know, I mean, it's not something that we would think about, because they were still in the process of helping, of monitoring the calls that was coming in, assisting the police, the fire, the medics. I mean, so having this added stress, because they wanted to make sure that they got their thoughts out to somebody, and yep, disconnect.
Yeah, and it's funny because, these are people that don't even live here, so they don't have nothing invested in our community. And it was, just hearing them say, well, the people there that, have died because of you. It's like, are you talking about my people? Because this is my community. This is where I was raised, born, live, my children. I mean, what are you talking about? These are my people, my community. Yeah. So please don't waste your time calling us when you have nothing positive to say about the work that we do.
Yeah.
We just don't have time for that. I mean, yes, this is my people, ma'am, my people, not yours. I live here. I'm from here. That's my family. So please don't call us to speak nonsense. We're not going to listen to this.
But I bet it didn't stop though. It just that person kept calling back over and over and over, and and then you also probably had people that were calling saying, "My loved one lives there. Are they okay?" And then you're like, "I don't have an answer for you. We don't even know if your family members and our officers and firefighters were okay."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, we shared that as well. It's like, ma'am, I didn't even have time to think about my son who lives there, who by 2 o'clock, I found out the next day, a unit was able to say to me, yeah, Melia, the building's gone. I still didn't hear from him. Of course, I had in the back of my mind, he's going to be fine. And that's what kept me going, to assist everybody else. But, and we do that, right? As first responders, we think, okay, our family's going to be okay. Let me concentrate on the call at hand, the people that are calling me right now, and I'll deal with that later. But for now, it's like, let me do my job. Let me help who I can. And yeah.
You know how much I love dispatch. I mean, all of the women that work with us and the guys too, and and to see you guys hurt in the way, when I came across and saw you guys had spent time, it was really hard because, I know how much heart and love you have for not only the community, but the guys and gals that you serve, and so you couldn't do anything to be able to be there to take care of them, and they didn't have time to come by the dispatch center to show you that they were okay because they were so caught up in taking care of things in the field. So, maybe that'll be for the future where we could kind of have that peace. I want to go back across to Heather and Matt and Keoki for a minute because when I saw you, Heather, and I want to say this as a general statement too. There are a lot of people who I have deep respect for, and you guys do too, who are not on this call, who are actively involved. And we know their names. We could go through a whole list of people, all right? But the mere fact that they're not on this call doesn't mean that they were not vitally important and integrally involved and gave every single ounce of their blood, sweat, and tears to this incident response. Once again, deep respect for these people that were taking care of multifaceted things, including remain recovery, body recovery, trying to get people out. I want to throw this to Heather, because I know, Heather, that when I came and I saw your face, I mean, I know all you guys for a long time, but Heather was still covered in ash and soot days later. Put it that way. I don't even know if you went home for like 2 days. You were still in the thick of things and trying to help everybody because and you guys are all supervisors. So as supervisors, you have another level of responsibility, right? Is not only trying to do your job, but you care so passionately about your officers. So let's talk about it from that perspective. As you were trying to help recover bodies and recover remains and sort through and see if you missed anything. And by the way, I'm gonna pick on Heather here for a second because she likes cats, and Lahaina was full of cats. After this awful incident, all you could see at nighttime because we had no electricity, and all you could see was cat eyes shining everywhere. I don't lie, right? She could have taken in all the cats if she could have. I swear, man, she's a hoarder of cats. She loves cats. But I don't know if she told you this, but I had to stop and I said, Heather, I said, we were riding together, and I said, we are not stopping for any cats because I'm highly allergic. And I'm not highly allergic, but I'm allergic to cats. And I was like, we're leaving things behind. And I don't know if she was very happy with me, but she was cool.
I'm back and got the cat, don't worry. Dropped you off.
So Heather, and you guys too, talk about that from a supervisor level, trying to make sure that you guys are okay, but also having to do your job and function. How tough was that process?
Yeah, I mean, it was hard, especially like when the communication went down. A lot of times, I'm sure fire and medics are the same as us. You communicate through, text threads or calls if the radio's busy, especially an incident like this. I think a lot of the guys wanted to stay off their radio unless it was absolutely necessary. But there were so many of us and so many things going on. The radio was, jamming the whole time. So just trying to keep track of where everybody was really hard, especially when, more units started coming in. But just things like, when we were at the intersection of Keoki and HP Lani, the MECO guys were working on the poles, and they were kind of like up in their buckets, and they were just like, woo, like swaying in their buckets. And I remember seeing that, and that just blew my mind that they were, even up there doing that. But there was times at that intersection where there was just so much stuff flying around. I was telling my guys, get in the car because of like what happened to Matt. God forbid, this wasn't, little tree leaves or things flying around. It was like, corrugated metal, wooden pallets. I mean, like stuff that I've never seen lifted off the ground in any other storm. Pieces of buildings, roofing. So there was a lot of times they were directing traffic. I was telling them, just get in your car, turn your lights on, people will figure it out. Situations like that is so difficult sometimes you don't realize how dangerous traffic control can be, aside from, like Keoki said, the other threats of the lines down and everything else. We still didn't know. They had said that the power was out, but there was the question of what is it, de-energized or not. And so we were treating them like they were energized, but then, like I said, the biggest problem was the poles down. But just trying to keep track of the guys. I knew that there was one sergeant up there, Sergeant Losfar, up with the guys when they were evacuating the top of Lahaina Luna initially. But then as it started to come down, it was just like trying to mentally take, okay, where is this person at? I hear him out there, and and it was also, like Matt said, you were so on autopilot, you didn't, anyone that's been through a critical incident like that, you don't have time to think about it. You don't have time it's just next. Okay, I finish this next. And it's really amazing how our survival instincts are, because if you were thinking about these things when they were happening, I don't think, I'm shocked that every police officer and fireman made it out. I mean, even I watched a lot of the body camera after and read a lot of the reports, and there were so many of us that got trapped, and when, being trapped in something like that and getting out, I think it was really hard because you had a little, tiny 1% feeling of what those people that, lost their lives had to deal with. And it was you know, like they said too, I was in a critical incident too, a shooting, and this was 100 times more terrifying than that, you know, because you have no control. And it's black as night. You can't see anything. And I mean, just really hard to think about what those people went through. And absolutely, really, we're blessed that we didn't lose any of our officers or any firefighters. They came real close to losing a whole truck full of firefighters, and thank God that they got out. They had that one, you know, young officer or firefighter that really, you know, did the same thing that a lot of us do in a situation like this. He just went on autopilot, and it was survival instincts, and he was jumping trees and everything else, grabbed, you know, one of our officers' cars and dragged his captain or chief out. Because I was there when they brought him back, and I had just pulled up to Shaw Street, and they had just pulled up, and his legs were hanging out the back. And I saw a police car, so I thought it was a police officer. And I was like panicking. And then I saw them pull him out. I saw it was a firefighter, and I was still, you know, that he's one of us. And I mean, to me, he didn't look, you know, he looked that he had passed on, and you could see his guys' faces. They were just traumatized, and, you know, they're pouring water on him. And it's amazing that we didn't lose any of our guys or fire or medics or anything like that. But it was very hard to think of. I was really, we had done a couple roll calls, but, you know, until you see the people in person, you're not really too sure. You know, you hear the roll call, and if there's a roll call of 50 people, you know, you could have missed one in there. So until you actually saw the people in person was when it was like, it was okay, you know. And I know that's like a little feeling I can imagine of what the dispatchers feel like. I feel really relieved because my mom and my son were home, and like Matt said, I was on the phone with them and it got cut off. And, you know, I had later found out they were just home all night crying, thinking that, you know, something happened, and they couldn't get through to, you know, the non-emergency. So I know one of the dispatchers, I think they might have texted to 911 just saying, is Heather Gilroy okay? And one of the dispatchers, of course, they're amazing, called her back and said, yes, she's okay. She's, you know, and told them where I was and what I was doing. And that just meant a lot to me. And it meant a lot to them because I know they were, you know, just panicking. Like I'm sure all of our, you know, wives and husbands and children were, because it was like, I grew up in New York. I grew up during 9/11, and I was there during 9/11, and the same thing happened. My parents were working in the city, and we lost all communication. So when we don't realize how, you know, how much we rely on being able to know that people are all right. You know, the anxiety and panic of not knowing is really stressful. So, but yeah,
and I don't know that people knew this who are not involved in this incident, but we had no cell phone service. That's what we're referring to. There was no cell phone service. I would say shoot as long as like 5-6 days afterwards, you were starting to get satellite kind of communications through the Starlink stuff, but you couldn't get cell phones to work. So some people were displaced on the other side of the island. They couldn't get through to get to their families. And people were wondering for a long time if their loved ones were dead or not. You know, and so it really caused a lot of stress in the community, even beyond our first responders, community members who had family members on that side, who were trying to get in to go help their family members, take food, etc. There was no access points available because it was still so dangerous. The lines were still down across the road, poles were down, everything was broken and burned and just damaged. And so, you know, and then there's that level of guilt of not allowing people to be able to reunite with their loved ones and stuff. But there is a safety issue that has to be taken care of first, right? Matt and Keoki, I know that we're running up here towards 9 minutes before we have to take our lunch. But Matt, any other things that you wanted to add from what Heather had said?
Going back to the cats, That's surprising that so many people would refuse to leave their house. Well, not without my cat. Your cat. Just leave the door open. The cat's not going to have a problem leaving. It's the people who won't leave. I'm like, your cat's going to open the door. And clearly, the next day, cats were everywhere. The cats made it out. It was the people who were a little more stubborn, if you will. You had to really encourage them to get in the car. And like, I don't understand. I mean, I love pets, but it's you still got to get out of the house.
Yeah.
Well, and I feel too, like, there were animals obviously that were found dead, but the doors were probably closed, and these dogs and animals couldn't run away too. And there was a lot of disorientation, right? I mean, you guys were working while the smoke was overcoming people as they were trying to leave, and people were getting inundated by smoke inhalation, and then you would lose sight and sound from them. And then you knew that they were gone, but there was nothing that you could do. And I know that you each have very specific stories that I know, that things that people that you tried to help, that you tried your best, but they weren't able to be saved. And you had close personal contact with people like that. So let me put this now to a larger umbrella. Let's change this now to a larger umbrella. As you reflect on on this horrific incident that happened last year, how have you guys moved towards healing from it? What does that look like, and what is your journey of healing? Because even though it's so new, it's so raw, still a year out from now, and we just passed that anniversary on August 8th. How have you guys done this yourself? How have you seen people do this to start healing from such a trauma? I'll let this go to
For myself, I look at how congested, like you said, how many people are in this tiny little 5-mile area. And we did lose 104. But if you put the total number of all the thousands and thousands of people that had to evacuate within a few hours, it's amazing. Like Heather said, that no officers, no firefighters, no medics went down pulling this many people out. There were people who had to jump in the ocean. There were people, like a big chunk of people who didn't make it were in vehicles that waited that we know we've been up there. Hey, it's time to go. Not yet. It's going to be fine. It's time to go. I'm not coming back a third time. It's time to go. To find there was, 6 or 7 cars leaving, but there was a car accident because they couldn't see. And once that car accident happened, every vehicle behind is now trapped. And so if they tried to get out of their car and make a run for it, they made it to their first or second breath, and then they went down. So part of me, the struggle is I wish people would listen to first responders. If I tell you it's time to leave your house, I'm not there for my own good times. If I'm the fire, it's time to leave. But there's so many people who don't want to leave their house. We've had people say, oh, you don't have $1 million house, you don't know what it's like. Or you don't have 3 dogs, you don't know what it's like. I don't, but I know my house value is not worth my life or the dog, whatever. So I don't know. People have come back now and they're more supportive. Initially, there was a lot of talk about, so why did you guys throw people in the ocean to get rid of bodies? I don't understand. Getting rid of bodies in the ocean doesn't make the missing person count go down. So it was frustrating, but a lot of conspiracy theories has gone, and people are now thanking and coming back and saying, hey, you guys did great. They did initially at first because everyone's going through this trauma, but now that they've had time, it's good to hear people say, hey, you were the guy who pulled me out of my house. Thank you. So that helps.
That's really incredible. Thanks, Matt. Keoki?
Yeah. So we have this saying in narco work, and it's expect to self-rescue. And it's kind of like this slogan that comes along with doing UC work. And if you do any type of UC work, and you always have a cover team on your undercover officer, but there's going to be a period of time where you're going to have to fight for yourself. And 30 seconds feels like an eternity. So that's something that I keep in my mind. I actually have a patch of it that's on the roof of my car that I look at all the time. But that, I definitely feel like that translates over to mental health. Like, it's great, all the resources that we have out there. I feel like as a police department, we have more resources for our mental health more than ever before. But if you as an officer don't take that opportunity to find that, and it doesn't have to be a service that's offered by the police department or anyone, but you have to figure that out for yourself. I think I've mentioned it to you before that, like, after the fire, I was gone for months. A lot of us were, we didn't even return home. But I told my wife, I'm getting passports for the kids. I don't know where we're going, but we're gonna go. Like, I'm gonna get it set up, and we ended up going to Japan at the end of the year when we finally were able to get some time off. And then, so one other thing I wanted to throw in real quickly, because I know this is like this conference is kind of focused around mental health, and there's a lot of mental health professionals on the line. So directly to you guys. So Dara is very special to us over here. And it's not that it's because he's a doctor. That doesn't mean anything to us, really. It's important to us because he's our friend first, and he's here for us when we need to talk. And he doesn't talk to us coming from a doctor's angle. And he was very smart in a sense that he set up these relationships prior to any of this tragedy happening. So that I hope you guys can take that away and do your best to connect to the people that you guys serve and work for. Because even though Dara just shows up and he's just BSing with us in the parking lot or whatever, and we're just talking crap to each other, it goes a long way for us, and it helps us in a lot of ways. We don't want to sit down in a room with you. We want to be talking crap out in the parking lot.
Thanks, Keoki. Thank you, bro. I appreciate it. You guys mean a lot to me, you know that. And so me sitting down here was one of the hardest things to hear. I got initiated from somebody who used to do mobile crisis work on Maui, and he sent me a picture of exactly what Heather described, which was that firefighter that got brought up to that intersection by the aquatic center where Travis got his car back. And he said, this is the worst thing that I've ever seen in my life. It's like an apocalypse. And then it hit me that this was a lot, just like Davlynn, right? Like, we were away, so you don't really know how bad it is. In fact, there were people on island who didn't know how bad it was, because Lahaina has always had fires, and you always hear about a brush fire, and they always, firefighters do a great job, they extinguish it, and, then move on to the next one. So when you heard a fire, like, nobody would have thought that this would happen. We thought it was a fire, and it was like, okay, some people, you might lose some property, like fires happen, people lose property, but not to the extent that this happened. So it was beyond measure for sure. Yeah. I do. I want to thank the command staff. I want to thank the retirees that reached out to me. I want to thank the chief and the assistant chiefs and the deputy chiefs and everybody who gave me carte blanche to be able to have a car to move around and come and spend time with you guys. I have great privilege, and I never take that for granted because of, as Keoki said, the relationships that we have. We are all more than just colleagues. We are friends, and I know you would do that for me too. And I think that is really the important piece, is being genuine with each other and having that connection. Melia and Davlynn, any final words regarding how you have healed or helped to heal the staff over the past year?
Every day it's a little bit better. We're taking it one day at a time. And just yesterday, I was able to talk with a dispatcher who was with me that whole first day, and she was the one that was on the fire channel. And she was also the one that helped me and others locate that fire call when we got it at 5 o'clock or whatever time it was, when that distress button was pushed. And I was talking with her to see, she's since moved from the department. She's working at another dispatch center in the mainland, Washington, and she's doing well. But she said she just went to a conference, a mental wellness conference that her department sent them to. And she realized that she still had sad feelings. And of course, we're going to have sad feelings, that although we're functioning, we're surrounded by good people, and I have to say, I mean, I don't wake up depressed every day, but when we talk about it, yeah, it still hurts my heart. And she's kind of there too. And it was kind of nice that we could share that moment because she was there. She was there with me that whole 24-hour period. And just to check in with her that she's okay. That we recognize that, yes, this is something that it's going to take a while for us to heal from. We're still learning, to live through all of that, as well as we keep adding more stuff to the basket, right? I mean, our profession, every day is not a great day. But yet we have each other. So for us, the support really is the people I work with, the people I love, the people I share the most horrific times with is my support. And I'm also very fortunate to have a good family that understands the work that we do and gives me that space. And Keoki mentioned that he got to go to Japan with his wife, and I did too. As soon as I was able to take some time off, that's what I do. I mean, I'll work super hard to get to my next vacation because that's where I can let it all out and just enjoy and not even think about work. So the best thing though really is the fact that all of us, everyone, including the officers sitting there, I mean, at any time, if we really needed to, we have each other to lean on. And that's the honest truth. That's the great people that we work with, and they continue to support us no matter what, and we do too. And so we're in good hands, and thank you, Dara, for coming over and allowing us to share. And at that time, not everybody was ready to share, and that was fine. That was fine, because eventually, months later, when they're ready, they'll say something and we can support that.
That's right. Sometimes you just need to cry. You just need to be with each other, and you don't have to say anything. You just need to be there.
Yeah, and I have turned into the biggest crybaby. I never used to cry this much. I don't cry when I'm taking serious phone calls or, sitting when I have to do a job. But yeah, talk to me afterwards, and I don't know what happens.
Nothing wrong with that. Hey, we have a few questions here I wanted to kind of get to, but I know that we are running up against the clock here and we've just creeped over into lunch, but let me ask you really fast anyway, okay? This is for all for all of you. Well, we answered this one here, and the answer is yes, Julian, which is, did any of the firefighters or police officers have any difficulties with anyone who was refusing to leave their homes? And the answer was yes, multiple people. Agreed? Yes, shaking of heads, yes.
Yes.
Yes. How long did it take for you guys to cover the area that was burned to get the number of lives lost? That was a long time.
Yeah, it was probably I would say a little over a week before we found most of the victims, but then we had some different teams that could come in and differentiate ash from small fragments of bones, which we didn't have the capabilities of doing. So that was like several weeks after, but pretty much the bulk of the victims were recovered within, I would say, 5 to 7 days.
Yeah, and I mean, it went from like over 1,000 quickly down to the hundreds, quickly down to where we regularly. And I want to say, Heather and the patrol officers, now I want to differentiate Matt for a little bit with Jonathan and other folks, because Heather and these folks who were running patrol will really have to keep the remaining intact properties and the environment safe from people who are coming in to loot or steal and stuff. And so you will never get rid of the criminal, folks coming in trying to take advantage of people. So our patrol guys were augmented and assisted by our entire state's departments of police forces And so I want to also give praise to the Big Island and Honolulu PD and Kauai and, Big Island. Like everybody chipped in, and the State Department of, the sheriff's deputies and everybody who came in, DLNR, like they had so many people. It was such an amazing show of brotherhood and sisterhood that came in to assist with patrol as well as recovery. And speaking to the federal partners, I mean, the USAR guys, they came in on my flight and, they brought in the cadaver dogs and the search and rescue dogs. And it went quickly from, Friday when I was there with maybe 10 dogs, 15 dogs, and it exploded up to like 60, 70 dogs that came in. They had training dogs and other real dogs. But I remember watching Matt. I remember watching Matt in the field when you switch into detective hat role now. You were now taking over, remain recovery, trying to identify bodies, and people like you and Oren and he had a friend that came in from Oahu, and Jonathan and all of you guys that were detectives just combing and working. And of course, I mean, we can't forget Biggie. I mean, Biggie to me was like the hub of everything that was taking place there. That's one of the officers we work with. And so you guys are so humble and so caring and so kind. And the community is so lucky to have you guys, and the work that you guys did, I saw with my own eyes as I was there with you, as we were doing all of this stuff together. And I just have so much respect for the multifaceted parts between patrol, Keoki doing command and supervision of things, our dispatchers continuing to take these calls, Matt and the detectives identifying human remains and respecting the remains of these loved ones, getting them over to the morgue, and having Stephen, who's on here today, help with, Jason. They were doing the remain identification and stuff, right? No, who was over there with him? Brad. It was Brad Taylor was over there with him, and all of these folks that were taking care of the process. And there are a lot of heroes that you will never hear about, and we know them by name that will never come forward and say anything at all. And I will keep their names anonymous here because they're just not ready for that kind of recognition. But really incredible people, including the person that gave his patrol vehicle to stand a command post on foot while somebody else took his vehicle to rescue the firefighters. That was really incredible. And he stood there in the midst of everything taking place as fires were going on around him. There are more questions that were asked here today. Ken, I don't know if you guys could probably see the question and answer box as well. So hopefully you could open that, and then you could take a look and you could respond to those as well as to the chat box. And I really appreciate you guys. Thank you very much for being part of this today. Davlynn, Melia, Keoki, Matt, Heather, thank you. And stay on as much as you can, respond to these things, to these questions and comments, and we'll chat again soon.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Bye-bye.